The Minnesota Timberwolves had a serious interest in acquiring Josh Giddey before they acquired LaMelo Ball and reportedly were turned down by Bryson Graham and the Chicago Bulls, namely because the Chicago Bulls are not open to moving Josh Giddey and reportedly, according to The Athletic, view him as a foundational piece of this rebuild. Hold your horses. Wait a second. Tell Matt Peck he may not want to watch this episode because we're going to talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get to this content for today, y'all. So as we know, a lot of details of moves that happened or did not happen over the offseason, you start getting details to trickle out of those a couple of weeks, months after it happens. And reportedly, the Minnesota Timberwolves had serious talks with the Chicago Bulls about potentially trading for Josh Giddey, but there was little traction, and they were shut down pretty quickly in their attempts to get Josh Giddey, mainly because, yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted a bigger guard to pair with Anthony Edwards, and they felt that Giddey fit the mold because of his size, his passing, his rebounding, and his play in transition, right? And hearing that the Chicago Bulls quickly shut down the rumors shows that they have a commitment to Josh Giddey. Now, I'm going to go directly into the article in regards to this one, which came out from The Athletic that said this. With Graham now in charge of the team, they're looking to have a different philosophy on building the team. The Bulls are not likely to make the playoffs this season, but they're still trying to accumulate talent that can really give them a chance to compete in the postseason. Giddey is a player that they want to continue to build around as a young foundational piece. This is why they didn't let the talks get very far with the Timberwolves. They made it pretty clear early on they were not interested in moving from him. Now he needs to prove their faith in him was correct. This is probably the biggest thing and sign that we've got now. That I do not expect this to change the Josh Giddey debate, right? The parts of the fan base want to see Josh Giddey gone. You have parts of the fan base that are very supportive of Josh Giddey. But at the end of the day, I think what this says about Bryson Graham's rebuild, regardless of how, and I want to be clear here, just because you're not tradable or you're not offered in trades now, does not necessarily mean you won't be later. Now, I do think that Josh Giddey, and I said this about every player, this isn't Josh Giddey exclusive. Every player is going to have to show their value and show their worth as part of this rebuild to stick around long term. And that's, like I said, that's not something I'm saying exclusive to Josh Giddey. I'm really saying that about everybody, right? And I think what you look at this in regards to it is that Bryson Graham's rebuild is not going to be a total teardown. I can't tell you how many fans that I've talked to that say, oh, well, everybody on this team that's not a Bryson Graham guy is going to be gone in a couple of years anyway. And that's not always true. Not only do we see Acme not do that, you can look around the NBA and see examples of why that doesn't get done, especially for young players that are on reasonable contracts. Usually, when a team comes in and has to clear out everything, it's because you have large bloated contracts, you have veterans that are overpaid, not paid to where the team is right now, and the Bulls don't really have that, right? And so I think in regards to it, the Bulls view Josh Giddey as somebody that helps your players develop now. He's going to help Caleb Wilson. Josh Giddey for Caleb Wilson is going to be amazing. A pick and roll, a pick and pop between Josh Giddey and Caleb Wilson with Caleb Wilson's new improved three-point shooting as well is going to be there. And Josh Giddey being only 24 years old, he fits the timeline, I think, more than what a lot of players realize. Not everybody has to be the exact same age to be on the same timeline. So now when you look at this, it's reasonable to expect that the Bulls, they view their young core as Josh Giddey, Caleb Wilson, Matas Buzelis, with players like Dalen Swain, of course, as he was drafted by this front office, Noah Essengay, and you can even say Leonard Miller, Rob Dillingham have a chance to show that they can also be part of that, right? And this is something that I've said for a long time. Bryson Graham wants structure around these young players. He doesn't want total chaos where the young players are just out there fending for themselves. That is not the best way to develop. And some of you guys in the comment section always thought that I was crazy when I said that you want players to develop in structure, right? And we already know, if you don't understand why Josh Giddey makes sense for Caleb Wilson, I don't know what to tell you. Josh makes the game easier for Caleb Wilson. Getting those looks in transition, hitting Caleb Wilson as a cutter, right? Feeding the ball to Caleb Wilson early in the offense as well. And you can like, yes, Caleb Wilson needs to grow as a dribbler. He needs to grow as a passer as well, but you avoid forcing too much of that early on, and you keep the offense from being self-centered. He keeps Matas in the game, Nick Claxton in the game, all those type of stuff. And then also the size of Josh Giddey helps the Chicago Bulls play faster, play stronger, play bigger. And so, the fit becomes even better if Caleb Wilson's jumper is real, because like I said, then you go from pick and rolls or catching them on backdoor cuts to actually being able to run a two-man pick and pop game, which can get Caleb Wilson early open as well. But I do think this does put pressure on Josh Giddey. As much as I am a Josh Giddey guy, right, and I believe in the talent of Josh Giddey, even when some people try, and you guys know, my journey with Josh Giddey has been when Josh Giddey first came to this team, and it didn't look good for that first month, that first season he was here. I was like, hey, we aren't winning Josh Giddey's minutes. I have my questions. But as Josh Giddey got more comfortable, as he got to play his role more, you saw me on the show, my opinion and my thought process on Josh Giddey changed. And I wish that more people had that mindset that it's okay to change it with looking at the actual thing. The passion that Josh Giddey brings is real. I've talked about the stats. I've given it to you guys. The only person who creates more open shots for the teammates other than Josh Giddey is Nikola Jokic. Josh Giddey was number one in possible assists last year. His teammates didn't hit the ball. Even if you look at having a more consistent shooting team around Josh Giddey, his assists, if this just the league average, if we were a league average shooting team, he would have averaged almost 13 assists per game last year. So, but there are some areas that Josh Giddey needs to improve on. The three-point shooting has to be real, right? The turnover control has to improve in that. The late game decision-making, I would say, has to get better in that one. So, that's what I'd say. Again, this is not to glaze it and act like Josh Giddey is some perfect prospect. No, he's a very talented young player that still has things that he has to continue to work on, as everybody does in this league and on this team. They have things that they need to continue to work on, and that's all I'm saying in this one. The Bulls right now are treating Josh Giddey as a foundational piece, and they should, because he makes the game easier on your players that could absolutely become superstars, and that's it. And he has to continue keeping that up. He has to show that confidence and that thought and what he can be. He has to prove that true with how he continues to develop and grow as a player. Now, some people are going to ask, well, should Josh Giddey necessarily be untouchable? And I'll say this, even if the word untouchable is too strong of a word for you, you don't move players just to move them, right? No player on this roster, no player in the NBA is truly untouchable, except maybe a few, maybe Wemby, and Jokic, right? Maybe those and Anthony Edwards and some other players are truly untouchable, but most players can be moved if the right deal comes. If there's a can't miss deal or a can't turn down deal, most players, there's a deal that's before that. Will the Bulls be offered that? That's what you have to listen to it. Now, should the Bulls continue to listen to offers? Sure, you can listen to it, right? But I think a team like Minnesota that's trying to make the move to be a championship contending team, having such a strong interest in Josh Giddey does show that some of the thought process that some Bulls fans have immediately when Josh Giddey comes in, oh, well, his numbers don't translate to winning. It's such a blanket statement there. But like I said, with people, we've seen star-level players put up great numbers on losing teams. So it's no one player. You have to be on the right team in the right situation to truly be a winning team, a consistent winning team. I don't think even the biggest Josh Giddey fan would tell you he's the type of a superstar, because he's not that yet, that can put the team on his back and lead you to the playoffs by his production alone. That's not what he is, but you don't have to be that to be a really good player either. The Bulls aren't shopping him aggressively, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be shopping him aggressively. They're not going to sell low on Josh Giddey because they value what he can bring to this team, and they want to see what he can do to elevate this young core as well with what he does. And I think when you look at it, the young core of the Chicago Bulls is really starting to become the prism that we're going to have to, the prism, not prison, that we're going to have to look through this team in. The next 2 to 3 years is about evaluating what we think could be the foundation of this rebuild for this team. That's Giddey, Wilson, Buzelis. Those are the main players right now, with other players having a chance to show that they can be part of that. And Dalen Swain, Leonard Miller, Rob Dillingham, those guys, Noah Essengay, any of those other young guys can also show that they're part of that, no matter how I may feel about some of them individually, right? And so that's why the refusal to really move Josh Giddey in those talks, it does matter, because it tells you what the mindset that this front office currently has about Josh Giddey. Now, that could change. As I said earlier in the show, that could very well change, and that's perfectly fine if it does. But it seems like you have a front office that if that mindset were to change for some reason, it's going to be because it's something else that helps progress and move the team forward, not just what some fans would have you do, trade Giddey just to trade Giddey because they don't like him, right? Or they don't like the way he plays basketball. And I think that and Josh Giddey's put in a prime situation. I've said this before. As much as the roster that we built is a good roster to build a foundation and structure around young people, We also have a roster that is set to really take advantage of the strengths that Josh Giddey has, and we can see how that turns out and works out for this team. That's really what it all comes down to. We'll see how it works out. We'll see what happens with this team overall. Like, I'm just continue to be excited about what we could develop with this team and what this team could continue to look like, and we'll see how that goes overall. But let me know what you guys think about this. I try to make sure I always forget to link the article. I'll try to make sure I link the article down below and where all this information came from. But as it stands right now, it seems like Bryson Graham and his front office view Josh Giddey as a foundational piece, and let's see what this means for this team going forward. But outside of that, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a live stream. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation